This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Smile, the makers of the brand new PDF Pen 6, PDF Pen Pro 6, and PDF Pen for iPad and PDF Pen for iPhone. Find out more about all the flavors of PDF Pen at smilesoftware.com. Welcome to Mac Notables on MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, Ted Landau is back again with us, which doesn't really surprise me, Ted. It's about time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about time. And actually, it may be a long time, relatively speaking, before I'm back again, because various travel plans that I have will mean that I may not be available again until October. So there'll be a little bit of a break.
Yeah, you jet setter, you.
Yeah, I wish it was just all fun, but it's a variety. Well, part of it is fun, but we're going to Banff and Jasper National Parks. Oh. That's going to be about a 10-day trip that we've been planning for a long time and looking forward to. But the rest of it is just a mishmash of things. But for one reason or another, I may not be available.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, you can just store up all that wisdom and then unleash it on us in October.
I think I leave it in the freezer before I leave. And then it's still there when I get back. It has a good shelf life.
Well, hopefully you will tweet some pictures from Banff, because I've seen some pictures, and it apparently is just an unbelievably beautiful place.
Yeah, supposedly. I'm not big on tweeting pictures, but I'll do my best.
Okay, all right. Well, you have an iPhone, right?
Yes, I've heard of them, and I think I actually have one.
Yeah, I would think so.
That's right.
Well, as you're getting ready to go off on all these adventures, you've been having some adventures of your own at home that now apparently you'll get to enjoy with TVs and all that stuff. So why don't you fill us in on what's been happening?
Yeah, we may have talked about it a little bit before, but it's one of the most... And I was going to say one of the most traumatic upheavals that I can have in my house, and I say that in a somewhat facetious sense, because really, compared to really serious things that can happen, this is more fun than anything else. But it took me I got a new TV this year, and as a result, made some other changes to our. This is to our major home theater setup that we have in our lower level of the house, and. Compared to other things that I might buy in a given year, this causes more disruption and time than anything else I can imagine. I've been working on this since January, so it's virtually the entire year has been spent off and on dealing with this. It started with CES in January, which I didn't go to, but I followed the news and I looked to see what new TVs were being shown that were going to be available later in the year, because they preview them at CES, and I saw some really interesting looking TVs. And I'd actually been thinking about getting a new TV for several years. The TV that we currently had down there was an older Sony SXRD TV, which, if you're not familiar with this technology, they don't make them anymore. It's out-of-date technology now, and it's a sort of a combination of a rear projection TV and an LCD, where it was a full 1080p LCD-like screen, but it was powered by a rear projection lamp in the back, and it was a big, one of the, still looked like those big rear projection units that weighed over 100 pounds, I think, and certainly not going to mount something like this on the wall. So for a long time, I've been looking forward to actually getting a real flat panel, either LCD or plasma TV down there. And every year I'd look, and every year I'd say, they're not that much better than what I have now for me to justify spending the money. I'll wait another year and see. So I was doing that again this year. And this year it looked like this could be the year. And in fact, and one of the big issues I was dealing with was, should I get an LCD, which the other TVs in my house are, and I'm pretty happy with, or should I go for plasma? And everything I was reading was talking about how plasma is superior in terms of the quality of the image. And I became convinced of that looking at them. And so I was definitely leaning towards plasma. And then this Panasonic TV came out in the spring that got these absolutely rave reviews. CNET called it like the best TV they've ever reviewed, essentially, in terms of a combination of quality and price. And it really was a steal. The 60-inch one, which was the size I was getting, the 60-inch one was available for like $1,400. And there was nothing that got similar reviews in 60-inch TVs or larger that was not like $1,000 or more than that one. You'd have to go like to $2,500 and up to start seeing comparable TVs. And so it really did look like a great TV for the price. And so I finally decided to get it. And then I spent like a month deciding, did I really want it? And I can become really obsessive. I mean, did I really, was this, I started obsessing about every little thing about the well, the screen wasn't as bright, the whites aren't as bright, but this was better. That, should I have gotten a 65-inch instead of a 60-inch? No, but that would have been another $1,000. It's not worth $1,000 for 5 inches. And I just, it took me, I had a month. The reason I spent a month on it is I had 30 days to return it, no questions asked. And so I spent those 30 days agonizing over whether I'd made the right decision or not. Finally decided to keep it. So now I had this new TV. I finally decided to keep the TV and decide I would be happy with it. Of course, I should mention, actually, I mean, these are the things that can occupy your time. Then I, of course, got obsessed with the correct settings. And I don't know if you've ever investigated this, but you can go online and there are whole long threads discussing the calibration settings for these TVs, and they're specific to each TV. And you're supposed to go into the advanced settings and adjust the gamma level and the different colors and this, and this will make a horrible picture and this will make a good picture. And there was discussion, and there was discussion of all other things. There was a whole discussion of whether this was good for games, which didn't really matter to me because there was supposedly a slight lag between the input from that would get to the TV and the showing on the screen of what that input represented. So if you were playing a game that required very fast eye-hand coordination, it might not be the best TV to get, and people were complaining about that. Anyway, it just went on and on. So I was adjusting calibration settings, and so finally I get through all of that. And then the next decision I have to make, and this is how this just keeps on going throughout the year, is I had decided now that I had a true flat panel TV and an empty wall behind it, I rather than have it be on a stand, I was going to mount it on the wall. And I quickly realized that my skills in electronics did not extend to mounting a TV on the wall. That was not going to be something I wanted to do by myself. And so I looked into how to get somebody to install a TV on the wall, and I looked at the Geek Squad people from Best Buy and decided that wasn't going to be what I wanted to do. And I found a high-end place that was going to do it like for $1,500 and decided that really wasn't what I wanted to do either. And finally, I mean, this again took me another weeks of investigating. It's not the most common thing to find somebody that just wants to install a TV on your wall at a reasonable price. And so I finally found somebody who would do it, and made an appointment for them to come out and do it after we discussed various things. And then I got into the whole thing as to how high did I want to mount it. And that's a whole other discussion. There's multiple threads online about it should be eye level. It could be higher than eye level. It could be lower than eye level. This, how do you decide, how high from the ground you want to mount the TV? And so then I had them come out and they mounted it. And then I decided it was too low. And I had to have them come out again to raise it another few inches and do another couple of things. And then when that's all done, then was the issue of the stand that the old TV had been on. Was a stand designed for that old TV and now looked ugly and out of place because there was no TV on it. And so then we had to get a new stand for all the AV components that worked with the TV. And I might actually, before I get to the stand, I might back up a second and interrupt me here, by the way, if you have any questions that you want to ask. But one of the other things you have to decide when you mount a TV on the wall is what you're going to do with the wires that run from the TV. And I decided to go a little bit classy and have the wires completely hidden and have them run inside the wall. And that involves, and anytime you do something like that, it makes me crazy because I'm big on wanting to be able to fiddle with these things myself. If I want to add a cord, if I want to remove a cord, whatever. Once the installers are gone, I want to be able to do it myself. But when you do this in the wall method, it's a lot trickier. I mean, first of all, the TV is mounted on the wall. It's even hard to get to the cords that are attached to the TV without removing the TV from the wall, which I don't want to do. You can do it to some extent. The newer TVs are designed to make it more accessible, but it's still not great. And then if you want to remove a wire or add a wire, you have to snake it through the wall and deal with all that. So anyway, so that was another whole source of anxiety for me. Was I ultimately going to be happy with the constraints that this system was going to impose on me, even though I liked the way it looked? But I went with it, and it does look very nice, and so far it's okay. So then we had to get a new stand, and that was another whole issue. And then when we finally got a new stand, I removed the old stand and saw the absolute jungle of wires that I had accumulated over the years of the system. And I think I posted a photo on my Twitter account with that, where I mean, it looked like, I don't know, it looked like the wiring for somebody's brain or something, when it was all the neurons going in multiple directions. It was totally unintelligible. And I know that I can conceptually think out each wire when I need to find out what a wire is doing and where it's going. But like if I were to die and my wife had to figure out what all those wires meant, she would just throw it all out and start over with a black and white television or something. It's just hopeless. So then I thought about how I might simplify the wires, and I'm currently still investigating that. And it just keeps going on and on and on. So I started thinking about this in January, and it's still not quite complete. Here we are in August. So it's a major disruption in that sense. But it's been fun. The end result is I have a great new TV. I'm really happy with the plasma. I think it was a great choice. The quality of the TV is every bit as good as the reviews were saying, and it looks classy hanging on the wall without any wires. And so the end result, and the table we finally got looks very good with it. And so the end result is almost all really good, but just a lot of anxiety and disruption along the way. So that's that.
Well, okay, so several questions jump to mind here.
I'm just leaning over like this. I see as I start talking, I say, "Oh my God, the weight of it all is pushing me sideways."
So it is the Panasonic. It was not delivered by Tim Cook or anything. You're not a beta tester.
No, it was the Panasonic.
Okay.
The ST60, I think, is the model.
Yeah, I've read some really good things about that, and of course the 65-inch ST65.
Right.
Ted, if it's not intruding, where did you decide to buy it? Because that's really seems to be increasingly important. You can buy these things from Amazon and have them delivered, but they come in a truck, and then you have to have 3 people to help lift them. Now, I don't know how heavy the plasmas are, but you start getting to 65 inches, 65 inches, they often have some weight to them.
Well, I bought it from Best Buy, and the reason I bought it from Best Buy for 2 reasons. It was a great price. It was the same price as Amazon was selling it at the time, which was $13.99. It's since gone up. I think it's $14.99 now. And so I didn't really feel like I was sacrificing any money by getting it from Best Buy. Best Buy delivers it, and the people who deliver it set it up for you. So they unpack it and completely set up, and they actually moved my old TV into another room as well. So I mean, they did everything. And beyond that is this 30-day return policy, which doesn't involve having to ship anything. If you want to return it, you just call them up, and they send a truck out to pick it up, and that's the end of it. So you don't have to figure out how to repack it and insure it and possibly pay shipping charges, which I didn't want to get into, which is probably the biggest reason that I like to buy locally. So I bought it at our local Best Buy.
Yeah, there's some, and I have to tell you, I don't buy a lot of electronics locally, but I've had occasion to buy some, and our local Best Buy, they're not what they used to be. They have really upped their game a lot. The people seem to be intelligent. They certainly are friendly and a lot more customer service oriented than they were at one time. So, I hope you had that experience, because I've had that experience.
I had mixed experience. I have certainly had salespeople that are, as you describe, quite decent, and just as often, almost like a flip of the coin, I'll come in there and get somebody who is totally unknowledgeable about where I know much more than they know, and actually most people would know much more than they know. But yes, overall, and of course, the classic Best Buy still. Their emphasis is on the lower end of the price scale. So if you want a high-end product, you'll have a harder time finding it at Best Buy. But within the lower end of the price scale, they have a tremendous selection, probably better than any other place. And Best Buy did a couple of years ago, I guess, bought out the Magnolia home theater chain of high-end stores, and several Best Buys now have incorporated Magnolia into the Best Buy. So there's this little Magnolia corner of the Best Buy that has the high-end TVs that the typical Best Buy doesn't carry. And there was one Best Buy near us that was like that. So I went to that one because that was another issue. Even once I decided I wanted a plasma and I was settling on this Panasonic, I still wasn't quite sure. Would it be worth it to spend another $1,000, $2,000 to get some of these other TVs that were much more expensive? There was a Samsung in particular that I had gotten really good reviews for being like the brightest plasma screen ever produced. It was almost as bright as LCD screens. But I couldn't see them anywhere. And so I actually found a Best Buy that had a Magnolia that had all these high-end TVs that had been reviewed on display. And I looked at them and I said, I can see where it's brighter, but really not $2,000 brighter. So it was, the Samsung TV, 60-inch Samsung TV that competed with the Panasonic that I got was $3,000. And with tax, it would have been something like $3,300, $3,400. So.
I assume that there's no more problem with plasmas in California or anywhere. There was a time, I think, weren't plasmas banned because of power consumption?
Not in my time in California.
Okay. Maybe I'm making that up. But
you might be right. I just not aware of it being an issue. Yeah. And the burn-in issue is largely history as well. Yeah. Right. They still do consume more power than plasmas, but a lot less, I think, than they used to, and certainly a lot less than the lamp-powered TV that I had before.
Oh, yeah. The mount. Did you, with something that large, I think you can get an articulating mount for a 60, for a 60. Did you go for that, or did you just have a static mount on the wall that can't be moved?
No, I went for the middle ground. It's a tilting mount, so it can tilt 15 degrees forward like that, but it doesn't come out and turn itself around. And the tilting is nice. Tilting does two things. One is if you mount it higher than I did, then it can be nice to be able to tilt it down from when it is really higher than you want it to be. It's a way to compensate for mounting it higher than you might have otherwise wanted it. And the other thing is the tilt can help reduce glare during the day. So if you have a window that's producing glare, tilting it can reduce the glare, which actually gets into a couple of things. One is plasma TVs are almost all, in fact, I think all, glossy reflective screens, unlike the LCDs, which typically have matte screens. And so it's much more of a problem of reflection on plasmas than on LCDs. And so, again, that was another thing I had to get used to. Instantly, I saw that there was much more reflection on this TV than my old TV had. And like most things, though, they bother me much more the first 48 hours, and especially during the first 30 days when I can still return the TV, and than they do later on. The reflective glare almost doesn't bother me at all anymore. And the other issue is, in terms of the height, in case anyone gets into this, one of the things you'll notice is that what appears to be the ideal height for a TV, at least by my reckoning from reading stuff and trying things out, is lower than the height that you would hang a picture. Like a Van Gogh type of picture, or a landscape, or whatever that you might have bought at a flea market or whatever. And so when the TV is off and is just hanging there like an empty frame, it looks wrong, because it certainly would not be as high as anything else that any other framed picture that you would have hung. If you hung a framed picture that low, it would look off. But where you would hang a framed picture is too high, in my view, for where you want the TV. On the other hand, there's definitely a range. A lot depends. I don't know how much detail people want to hear about this, but what's the ideal height? I mean, a lot depends on what type of chair you're sitting on, how tall you are, how far away from the TV you're going to be, and so on. And so, really, you can't say there is that like 38 inches is the ideal height or whatever. There's a range of that can be ideal, and certainly you can raise a TV 6 inches one way or the other and still be within a range that's acceptable. So I probably could have raised the TV that we have another 3 or 4 inches and still have it be okay. And I might someday decide to do that when I've calmed down from all this anxiety.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges. There's no question about it with mounting it on the wall. And I was sort of surprised, given you and and as you said, the sort of the brain matter mess behind the TV of wanting to connect everything. I've got one wall-mounted TV in my house. It's in my kitchen, and it's because it's the only place, only option I had. But other than that, I tend to put them on stands of one kind or another, just for the very reason you said. I love to fiddle with it. I love to plug things in, unplug them, rearrange things as new components come out. So I have to admit, I was surprised when you said that you ran the wires inside the wall. Did you try to plan ahead for anything in that regard, or is it just catch as catch can?
Well, a couple of things. Yes, the one. I mean, one of the hassles, of course, that I have about the height, and the reason you obsess about it so much, is that once it's mounted on the wall, you can't change the height very easily. There are adjustments you can make if you're willing to take the TV off the wall and make them yourself. But basically, aside from that, it's really hard to do. As opposed to if you have it on a stand, if you want to move it 3 inches to the left, 3 inches to the right, if it's on a stand on a cabinet, it's very easy to do. So yes, that is a hassle. But if you have a modern AV receiver, it makes it a lot simpler, because every component I have feeds into the AV receiver, and then there's one HDMI output from the AV receiver that goes to the TV. And so for most people, I have a little bit more complicated setup for various reasons, but for most people, one HDMI port to the TV, for most people that have a type of setup that I have anyway, with a receiver, one HDMI cord to the TV, and possibly an Ethernet cord if you have a wired network that you want to connect to the TV. But even not that if you're going to go with Wi-Fi. That really you might only need one cord to go, basically. And so it isn't like you have to worry about pulling cords in and out. So if I were to get a new Blu-ray player, for instance, I don't have to connect the Blu-ray player to the TV. I just connect the Blu-ray player to my AV receiver, and that then in turn maintains the connection to the TV, and I don't have to deal with the TV at all. So with that in mind, I decided to take the risk of doing it within the wall. And it's not. It's within the wall. Basically, there's a hole, and it looks more attractive than a hole. But functionally, there's a hole at the bottom where you plug things into the wall, where the wall outlets are, and then there's a matching hole behind the TV, and wires run from one hole to the other. And it's all a matter in my setup of maybe 3 feet from one hole to the other. So that's the extent to which they're behind the wall. And if it's not. Again, if you're comfortable unmounting and remounting the TV, it's relatively simple to get behind there if you ever needed to.
Yeah, usually though at that size you have to have 2 people.
Oh yeah,
not necessarily because of weight, just because of awkwardness.
Well, and weight and size. I mean, there's no way you can unmount a 60-inch TV by yourself unless you want to break the TV. Then you can do it. But
now you bring up the AV receiver, which is where I was going next, and that is audio. Did you basically use the same audio setup, or did you revamp the audio setup?
No, it's the same audio setup I had, which was already pretty good. In a year or two, I might decide I want to improve my audio setup, but because it's now probably about 10 years old. But it's still actually more than 10 years old, probably more like 12 years old. But it's still quite good, and it gets nice 5.1 surround sound, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, that's another thing that, I mean, if you haven't done it, folks, it's an easy way to kind of upgrade what you have now is just improve your audio. It adds a new dimension to the whole the home theater experience. Oh, absolutely. Anyone that has a HD large screen TV and is using the TV's sound as their only sound output is missing half the fun of having a home entertainment center. That's for sure. Yeah. Any remote issues, as in, a unified remote or?
I've been using a Harmony remote that I used even before I got this TV, and then when the new TV came, I had to reprogram the Harmony for the TV, and that wasn't very difficult, because I'm used to it by now. It isn't the simplest thing to do. The idea that you have to connect a remote control to a computer and launch a Harmony application and deal with this whole interface for changing settings it isn't something that will endear the remote to people that like simplicity, that's for sure. But I've gotten used to it, and I changed it. And the only hassle that I had is, for some reason, and I've read that there's a timing issue, that the new TV apparently changes its HDMI input, or changes its input so fast that or so slow or whatever. There's a mismatch between the remote and the TV now, such that when I go from HDMI input 1 to HDMI input 2, and I do have 2 for reasons which I could discuss if you're interested, it doesn't change. And so then I have to say help. And then when I say help, it rechecks all the settings to see if they're correct, and then it will automatically at that point change it to the correct HDMI input, whereas before I didn't have to go that extra help step. But there's a way to fix that, and I just have been too lazy to bother with it now. I'll get around to it in a while.
Yeah, after the stress calms down.
Right.
This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software for the Mac, iPhone, and iPad. Are you using PDF Pen to work with all the PDFs in your life? If not, you're missing out. PDF Pen and PDF Pen Pro are the go-to applications for annotating, editing, redacting, and manipulating your PDFs to your liking. Two of the most useful features of PDF Pen are the optical character recognition and the Microsoft Word export capabilities. When you open a PDF in PDF Pen, you are given the opportunity to turn the text into, text. Editable, actual text, not just a graphic representation. The conversion is both accurate and fast, the two most important parts of optical character recognition. Once converted, you can change, correct, or update the document right within PDF Pen. And for those cases where formatting may need to be extensively adjusted, or just because you need to get the text out of a document with the formatting intact, PDF Pen's new export to Word capabilities are a lifesaver. Just export to either doc or docx format, and your document pops up in Word, ready for whatever you need to do to it. Not a fan of Word? Don't overlook the fact that the doc and docx formats can be useful intermediary formats for moving between programs. Apple's Pages, for example, will import Word files, so even if you don't use Word, the export to Word capability is still super useful. You can pick up PDF Pen and PDF Pen Pro on the Mac App Store, or download a free trial and buy direct from the Smile website at smilesoftware.com. Smile also makes other terrific utilities such as Text Expander Touch, PDF Pen for iPad, PDF Pen for iPhone, and Disk Label. Be sure to check them all out at smilesoftware.com. Thanks to Smile for being the longest-running sponsor of Mac Voices. Well, you've led me into it. I mean, so if everything is passing through the AV receiver, why did you put a second HDMI, or what do you have connected to the second HDMI?
Because Comcast basically are not the sweetest people on the planet. That it turned out that when I first connected my Comcast set-top box to the receiver, everything that came from Comcast that was supposed to be high definition switched to standard definition. And I had Comcast come out to figure out what was going on, and they tried various things. They replaced the set-top box. They thought it might be a broken set-top box. They did this, they did that. They fiddled with different settings. Nothing that they tried helped. There was no way to prevent. The only way I could get high definition, which is what I ultimately did, was to have the cable from the Comcast set-top box go directly to the TV into a second HDMI port. So I wound up having one HDMI port for everything but Comcast, which went through the receiver and then to the TV, and then one for Comcast, in which an HDMI port went to the TV, and then I had a separate optical audio go to the receiver so I could get the high-quality audio through the receiver. And it was a bit of a pain. I mean, it works pretty well. It's not a big deal, but it's a bit of a pain. It means having to switch HDMI ports whenever I want to go to Comcast. And ultimately, in discussing with Comcast and ferreting out information on the web, what I think the consensus opinion is it's a copy protection thing. That the HDMI copy protection that's built into Comcast set-top boxes interprets my receiver as a potentially illegal intermediary. So there, remember how with Macs there was an issue at one point where some of the HDMI monitors, when you connected, I don't know if you remember this, but there was in the early days of HDMI, if you connected, if you tried, you didn't even have an HDMI, I guess I'm trying to remember how it worked now, but if you tried to play high definition video to certain monitors that were connected to your Mac, they wouldn't play, because the HDMI protection that was copy protection that was, the high definition copy protection that was built into the Mac rejected the TV as a potentially illegal device, and that had to get worked out. Apple had to update their software to allow some of these monitors to work, and so there's the big concern, as I get, is this whole concern that you could potentially record high definition video in a way that you weren't supposed to be able to, by putting some device between the set-top box and the TV. So if you had some, I don't know what it would be, but some sort of illegal DVR type recorder, and so to prevent that, they actually have checks built into the whole HDMI firmware and cables and so on, so that if it detects some device that it thinks shouldn't be allowed because of potential copying, illegal copying issues, then it shuts down the high definition signal. And for some reason, my Comcast cable set-top box and the receiver that I had, which was a Denon, weren't playing nice together, and the Comcast cable apps kept rejecting it as an illegal device. And other people have reported the same problem. It wasn't just me. And maybe it might be fixed by now. I never experimented to see. The Comcast said at some point maybe they'll figure out a way around that so that I don't have to do that anymore. I've never even tried. That was about a year ago now, or 2 years ago almost. So.
Another example of where the copy protection, trying to do this stuff just creates technical nightmares for the consumer. It's
for the consumer who isn't doing anything illegal like me.
Yeah.
Who was just trying to get a normal setup.
Yeah. So you're completely happy with it now?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. I'm very happy with it.
It strikes me, Ted, and we'll put an Apple spin on this here at the end, but after all that, and I know some of it, the Comcast thing is an output issue, but it sort of just makes you realize that there is some space for innovation in televisions, and whether Apple is going to make an actual television, the panel or not. Just the comments, about, well, you have to run the optical audio over here, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. And I know I've got the same spaghetti that you did or do have behind my TV, trying to make it all work. And, once you get it done, it's great. But you just, I don't know if I spent, let's see, what is this? I don't know if I spent 8 months, but I know I spent a considerable amount of time getting everything right. And I didn't even go through the calibration process that you did. And it just, you look at it and say, isn't there an easier way? Well,
it sure should be. I know from the people that I help with their Macs and their relative technophobia around computers that these are people, that there are a lot of people out there that would never contemplate doing all the stuff that I did to get this organized. That either they would hire somebody to do it for them, or they just wouldn't do it. And that's definitely true. And so there is an opening there for somebody who might be able to figure out a way to simplify all this. And as an aside, trying to, like you said, spin an Apple relationship here for people who are wondering what the hell does this have to do with anything Apple related, and it largely doesn't. that I found in the last year or so that I've been using my Apple TV more and more all the time. Now that our local video stores like Blockbuster have pretty much all dried up, and I'm not that interested in DVDs anymore anyway, I find that I use the iTunes store anytime I want to watch a movie that I would have otherwise gone to Blockbuster to rent the DVD. I rent it from iTunes instead. I use Netflix more and more, especially for TV series, and now that they've had their own TV series like House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. I watch Netflix for that. I watch Netflix my wife and I are going through The West Wing again. I watched Ally McBeal, Damages, a whole bunch of stuff. And now with HBO Go, which I get because I have HBO on my Comcast, I use HBO Go all the time to watch HBO. I almost never use the actual HBO channel. The HBO Go is much better because I can watch anything that's on their channel instead of when they schedule it. I can watch it when I feel like watching it. And it's really great because I don't have any commercials or anything either. It's not like some of these. It's not like when you want to watch a CBS show on the CBS website, and they say this TV show will be shown with limited interruptions, and you get a series of commercials every few minutes. It's not like that with HBO Go. And so between Netflix, HBO Go, and iTunes, I'd say probably that's over half of my TV watching right now. So, and maybe even more.
Well, again, you're anticipating my questions. You obviously have a Comcast box connected. You have an Apple TV. Anything else that you have?
Well, I have a Blu-ray player and a DVD player and a Nintendo Wii.
Okay.
So all that's connected. Yeah.
But
I look forward to when the Comcast box can be chucked. That would be a happy day, and something like an Apple TV is all that I'll need for anything. And I think that's coming. I think we're in the midst of a big disruptive transitional period for TV. I think in the next 5 years we're going to see a major shift to the internet for all of TV, and traditional cable broadcasts and certainly over-the-air broadcasts are going to gradually disappear.
Well, as we record this, of course, CBS and Time Warner are in this mudslinging battle that is really interesting to watch. And, it's also interesting to watch my Twitter stream to see the people that have Time Warner and are really disgusted by it. And they're looking for another option of some kind for both their internet, as I guess as part of a protest, and also for TV. So, and that may just be the first shot in the serious war.
Yeah, and there's very limited options. If you want to, if you're just, if I don't want Comcast for some reason, I can go to AT&T and get their Uverse, which I really don't want because I don't really want to shift to a whole different technology. And especially because I still have, and this gets to other issues, I still have a TiVo device in another room, which probably I'll give up on TiVo altogether when that TiVo finally goes. But for now, I still have a TiVo device in another room, and it works off of a cable card. And so if I went to AT&T, my TiVo is dead. And so and I wasn't prepared to do that because AT&T Uverse doesn't have any cable card compatibility, which is another whole issue, which I've been reading about recently. The cable cards themselves may be dead pretty soon. That the cable companies are looking to replace cable cards with a next generation type of card or device, and so there's a whole lot of. And you get me off, or I'm getting myself off topic here a little bit. But there's a whole lot of legislation behind cable cards, the cable cards, not cable cars, cable cards that I wasn't even aware of. In terms of there was this battle. The cable companies naturally wanted to make cable cards as unpleasant as possible, because their primary purpose was to allow things like TiVo to work with the cable companies. And they weren't interested in having TiVo work with them. They wanted you to get the Comcast cable box, not the TiVo cable box. And so they kept putting obstacles in the way of making cable cards work. And so then the government passed all this legislation that mandated that they do certain things so as not to discriminate against devices like TiVo. And now that they're thinking of moving on to these sort of post-cable card devices, TiVo may really be screwed, as it turns out. I think they're going to be in trouble in the years ahead. And they probably would have been in trouble anyway, because like I said, this whole trend towards getting away from that sort of connection to an internet-based TV, I think, is the way things are going anyway.
And, I'm glad you brought it up. because this is one place that I think that the cable companies could fight back a little bit. They could, instead of having these god awful cable boxes that I haven't found anybody that really likes theirs. They kind of tolerate it, and especially since it's cheap. If it doesn't come with your cable subscription, you can rent it very cheaply, as opposed to having to lay out the money for a TiVo. Mm-hmm. But if the cable companies would go and partner with TiVo, because TiVo it's still, I mean, for the little bit of TV I watch, or occasionally when I want to, I have my TiVo set up to capture things so that if I really want to watch something, it's there. It's a place that they have blocked service. They have blocked easy accessibility. Mm-hmm. They've gone with the cheapest route they could find. Mm-hmm. And I think in the coming battle, that's something they could do. They could put back or at least license some of that technology and do it, because every cable box I've seen or had, every DVR from the cable company I've seen or played with or worked with, the interface is nowhere near what TiVo's is. Mm-hmm. So it would be a place that they could really make a difference and say, hey, we are trying to improve the quality of our service for you.
Well, I know Comcast has periodically partnered with TiVo, and every so often I would read some email message that I would get that was saying, that there's now going to be a TiVo-based Comcast cable box, and it never seems to happen. No matter how many times they talk about it, but whenever I ask, oh yeah, in a few months, is the answer I get. Yep. In a few months never seems to happen, and the whole thing about DVR, as long as you're going down this route for a moment, the whole thing about DVR I find to be annoying. Now, I think DVRs are great, and they're a tremendous step forward from the old VCRs that we had to put up with before, in terms of the convenience of being able to record without having to just say record every episode of the series whenever it's on, and as opposed to a VCR, which you could never do anything like that, and so on. But the one big thing that VCRs had over DVRs, which I'm sure is deliberate on the part of Hollywood and the cable companies, is that with VCRs you had a cassette that you could remove from the device and permanently save. And you could have a million VCR cassettes if you wanted to, and have a million movies, one movie on each cassette or whatever. You could take the VCR over to a friend's house and play it. You could make a copy of it even, and have it as a backup, and so on. There's none of that. I had an issue about a year or two ago where my DVR broke. The Comcast DVR broke, and Comcast came out and said, we have to give you a new DVR. And I said, but I have 80 hours of programming that I've saved on that DVR that I don't want to part with yet. Well, that's too bad. They offer no way to deal with, or if your DVR gets filled because you're saving so much stuff to it, and you say, well, it'd be nice if I could just, half the stuff on my DVR I don't want to erase, but I may not watch it again for a year or two. I just want to have it for that one time 2 years from now that I want to see it again. Can't I offload it someplace and then put it back when I want to see it? No, can't do that. At least not officially. There are some workarounds that might be. But so the whole, and I view it as all designed deliberately that way. I don't think it has to be that bad. I think it's not inherent in the DVR technology. I think Hollywood likes it that way. Essentially what they've achieved is giving you a device that severely limits your ability to archive copies or exchange copies with friends, and which is exactly what they want to accomplish. So, they've won in that sense, and the customer once again is the loser. What should be something that should be relatively simple for perfectly legitimate things that a typical customer might want to do is practically impossible. And the other point I'll make in response to what you're saying is, I think the direction that Comcast is likely to go is not to come up with a better cable box through TiVo or anything like that. But they're pretty, I read something the other day that said something like, no matter what happens with TV going forward, the end result is not that you're going to be able to get your television for that much cheaper than you're getting it now. It's just that you'll pay somebody else in some different way, or the same person in some different. And I think that's largely true. I think there could be some monetary savings, and I think there will be, but it's not going to be anything like coming close to free or something like that. And in that regard, Comcast is a primary internet service provider. I mean, not only do I get my TV through Comcast, but my internet modem that allows me to talk to you right now over Skype is a Comcast. It's not a Comcast modem, but it's a Comcast is my internet provider, and the modem goes through Comcast. And so they're already in the internet provider business, and so they would be perfectly positioned to say, we see the internet as the coming way that stations are going to be delivered to customers. We're in a good position to be the person that provides those stations over the internet, and we'll set up a whole. Want to get. I could just see an ad one day. Want to get rid of your cable box? We're ready to serve you. Sign up for our internet-based television, and pick the channels you want at $5 a channel, and you're set to go. And Comcast will still be the winner.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think there's any question. I mean, if nothing else, they'll up the prices on your cable, your internet, your internet connectivity. I mean, they're
if nothing else, that would be the minimum, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're well entrenched. It's just too bad that they don't. The whole industry, the cable companies, the broadcast companies, Hollywood, the whole bit, don't seem to be taking the attitude that if we make stuff easier for people to get, they'll not only consume it, but they'll consume more. They'll get if they can get out of the way of themselves. But we hark back. Of course, we always bring up the music industry and their efforts at copy protection. And at the end of the day, if somebody wants to steal it, they're going to find a way to steal it. And the digital era just makes the piracy that much. It makes it a little easier, but I think one of the most important and often overlooked things is it gives you higher quality. And so, if you know where to look, you can find just about anything. And
well, we beat this dead horse multiple times, and we're doing it again. But basically, Hollywood in particular seems much more invested in maintaining the status quo than finding a way to make money by moving forward. And it's a losing battle in the end. It's just going to, while they succeed, they just wind up irritating customers, and ultimately they're going to lose anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got a good TV. I'm glad you're happy with it. I'm sorry you're not going to get to look at it now for a couple months because you're going to be gone. But
yeah, well, it'll be waiting for me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, safe travels to everywhere you're traveling to, and we will look forward to getting you back here again and seeing what you can tell us about maybe some of your travel tech and what you encountered along the way.
Yeah, and actually, to segue here to one final topic, when I come back in about a month from now, it should be the start of the end of the drought of Apple product announcements. After going over a year, really, I think the only real product that Apple came out with this year was the updated MacBook Airs, and so it's basically been over a year since Apple came out with anything significant, which is probably a record. I don't think I'd be hard pressed if we went back in time to find another stretch of 10 months or more where Apple didn't come out with any significant new products. And I like to think, I think I tweeted something about this the other day. I like to think that it's, I have this as someone who likes Apple, obviously, or we wouldn't be sitting here and wishes them well. I like to think that's like the end of The Godfather, where everything looks really bad for Michael, and all the forces are conspiring against him. The sort of Godfather equivalents of the Samsungs and the Googles are looking really good, and you're thinking, well, what could possibly save him? And then at the very end, he shows that he can massacre everybody else and emerges as the number one power in the whole family system. And so I like to think that Apple is holding back for various reasons, and we could discuss someday a lot of reasons why Apple might be holding back their product announcements rather than just saying it's because they don't have any new products to announce, which I don't think is the case, and that they're going to really come out with some gangbuster stuff over the next 12 months that will really show that Apple is still very much in the game. At least that's my hope.
Yeah, I agree. Well, like you say, you either be getting back right before that all starts or right after. So
yeah, either way, we'll have something to talk about.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, safe travels, my friend.
Okay.
Take care.
And you do as well. Thanks again.
Folks, that's Ted Landau. We'll talk to him maybe again in October. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we can catch him from the road.
Maybe. We'll see.
Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the home of the Mac experts you want to hear from, Mac Notables on Mac Voices. Thanks for watching.